Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Minecraft. I have done a little bit of extra work in another live stream just to liven this place up a little bit more than where we left it last. Giving it a little bit of detail in these paths, adding some stones and stuff, and connecting it back to here a little bit nicer than it was before. It does really help compared to where I left it, and it feels a lot nicer to have these little details in here. And I think, honestly, the stones and stuff around here really do help. If I can continue this style of detailing all the way through, obviously I've still got a bit of work to do here, but if I can continue that and around this, it'll feel pretty nice. I decided to do these boulders as though stuff had long ago run down the side of this mountain and landed in this area, creating these spots for moss to grow and just generally filling this sort of sunk out section of the mountain's base. So that is feeling a lot nicer, but with all of this mossiness happening, and of course, I don't know how much, I have like a stack and a half to my name of moss. I think it's time we got into today's episode and made ourselves a moss farm. So we're going to pop down into here. Oh, I'm getting so much better at going through that. And swoop over to this side. And like I said previously, I think we are going to dig a tunnel down into here and organize myself an area to do a fairly simple moss farm. I think I'll probably end up using a Raiseworks design. There are a lot of designs out there, but most of them kind of focus on the bone meal and less on the moss, and trying to adjust them to take the moss out at the same time when they're so compact already seems like a little bit of a difficult task to me. And I do know that Raiseworks has one which will work just fine for me. Then on top of that, I'll be able to add my crafter and take the bone meal that comes out of it, turning it into bone blocks and sending both the moss and the bone blocks through into this storage hall. So I think what's best for me to do is probably come over to where I had this thing, take it down and prepare ourselves a little bit of space. Okay, now there's no reason why this area, when we put a farm in it, shouldn't look just as nice as this area up here, although it might be ever so slightly different. I think I'm going to grab myself some resources like this spruce, some of the dark oak, and of course the leftover bits that I have up here, and do a similar-ish design to this. But perhaps instead of deep slate bricks, because we do not have a lot of those, instead I go for something a little bit more classical in the stone bricks. I think the stone bricks will do just fine. And we already have some in here, so it's not too bad. So this area up here that I have made, if I press F3 and G, you can see that it encapsulates two full chunks. And I've gone a little bit out the sides so that I have some room to work. But I'm going to make myself a Raiseworks moss and bone meal farm, set it up in here, and I have done a little bit of designing over in Creative, making sure that I had it all together as well as an output system that will work for my needs. Once we have that built and in position, I'll bring you guys back in and we'll see if we can work out a way to set up the crafter so that it generates bone blocks out of the bone meal, and both the bone blocks and the moss get sent on their way. Let's just go into free cam for this, up into this section here. And essentially, I think I want to meet up with the corner of this. I can go ever so slightly higher and drop the items in, and then they will continue along their way, going into the sorter there and also down into one of the sorters down here to use my existing system. I barely kept from going over to where this was, and also I did have to change my plans because I was going to go out this direction and I ended up popping out into the water here. So we now have this area down here to work with, and I think it should fit just nicely. So I need to go ahead and get myself some resources built up. This was for another design that I was looking at, and it turned out that it just didn't quite fit my needs. So I changed plans, but I'm going to fill up these with all of the resources that I need. I'm going to convert some of this. A lot of the main stuff I'm going to be building out of the polished diorite, and we'll see what we can get together. I believe this farm should be able to work regardless of if you go out of the chunk or not. It is slower than a lot of them. And the reason I picked it is because it seems to be unload proof, if that makes sense. It's something that I want to be able to sit here running away while I work on some stuff around the area. And it doesn't matter so much if I happen to go out of simulation distance. That being said, if we go to my video settings, I could crank this up a little bit. Right now I have my render and shadows high, but not the simulation. So it will probably drop in and out. And therefore I wanted to make sure, and we will make sure, that it runs just fine when we do so. The plan being though, that eventually this will be completely full of bone blocks that we can use for building, as well as for any farms we desire and that need bone meal. And this silo here should fill to the brim with moss. Now, if that is the case, that this fills with moss and that the bone blocks are also full, I could probably have a little section out the back. Can I get in here? Yeah. A little section out the back here that just collects the very last bits of bone meal or moss and stacks them aside in extra storage, or even more to the point, it would be interesting if we could set it up as a failsafe so that when something over there starts to get moss, for example, or the bone blocks, either, then whatever we use to turn the machine on and off in here, maybe we can have that switched via those things. That being said, I really feel like it will run for a very long time before that becomes a concern. So for now, we're just going to get to building and see if we can make a farm that works. So sit back and relax. We'll do a nice little time lapse and we'll be back to try out some crafters and get it all set up so it's hooked back into my storage system. Enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay. So we have, let me just clear this up a little bit because I've got a bunch of stuff, but we have over here a new room. Look at this. So down this hallway here, we have ourselves a moss farm. Of course, this is just silly. Why not add a little decoration? But this fits just inside this room. And although we have different walls, I used a very similar detail to the roof of this area out here, like this. Obviously changed it up ever so slightly because of different shapes and sizes. But now we have this slightly customized Raiseworks farm. Now these can be picked up. Lovely. If I turn this on from this point here, it will start to produce a bunch of moss and a little bit of bone meal. So for starters, while this is producing the moss, it is going to be primarily producing the moss. We'll have a little look at what I have done here. So this section here is where it differs from the main Raiseworks design, but all of this stuff up here, there we go, is much the same. It is all the same. So this is a self-filling moss generation farm, and I added some bone meal in there, which it has started to increase. Eventually that will become completely full, And realistically, some of this stuff will continue past and it'll become even more efficient. But I have 2 item filters here that are collecting moss. So any moss blocks that continue past these, those 2 there will find their way down this edge and go into the filters. From there, all of the seeds, all of the carpets, all of the different pieces of moss related stuff will flow past into these hoppers. And I added a couple extra just to be safe, but realistically, we don't need that much. Those hoppers then produce the bone meal and send it down this way along with the moss, and both of those go into a little system that just puts items in the dropper and that will tick and shoot them out. And now I have this line that comes out the back here, and any extra items left over, we should see in a second, will shoot out of here. Come on, any second now. There we go. Yeah. So it is producing just a little bit of bone meal, and we are going to intercept that bone meal across here to make sure that it turns into bone blocks. We are then going to send all of this moss, and this is the main reason why I picked this farm over all of the others, is because I knew I could guarantee that I would get the moss out of it nice and easily. So all of this moss is going to continue on up into our system. And then I think what I'm going to do is send that moss along its way, and because this whole sorting system down here will not allow any moss to go into those chests, we are going to pick up the moss that comes down here, and we are going to send it back down this direction so that when the moss storage is full, it will then begin to produce bone meal in a far higher rate than what it is right now. So all of this moss is going to start turning into bone meal, and it will run through the same system that turns this bone meal into bone blocks and send them along the way, essentially creating a semi-closed loop. From there, we will be able to tell when the system is completely full because we will receive bone blocks into this overflow chest. Now, right now, every now and again, it is not super reliable on what items stay and what items go. Occasionally, some of them just come through here, but that's fine. I think it's time to start setting it up though. Now, we have a crafter. We do need to make ourselves a couple of things. I'm going to grab these pieces of glass and some blue ice and whatnot, comparators, repeaters, some redstone. We are going to set up a system much like what we have over here. Remember how we discovered how to do this over here, where you compare a full composter to the signal coming out of this and it will automatically craft, but instead of putting it into a dropper elevator, we can just have that dropper, or the crafter, sorry, spit the completed piece of bone block out, and should be great. Need a couple more of those. So if we pop up here, I do have a little bit of wood left over. I'm going to make myself a composter and we're going to get to work. Now I should turn this off so that I don't build up a ridiculous amount of moss to have to deal with, because as you can see, yeah, a couple of stacks there since we left. And I believe this should be able to continue to run once we have this system set up. But let's see if we can make something happen. So I'm going to take this line here and we're going to bring it across to the center of these. These are 7 wide, so I'm going to bring it across to the center. And then we're going to drop it into a crafter. Now, the way we are going to do that is by setting up a bone meal filter. I'm also just going to grab all this because why waste it? So one of these filters here, the old impulse filter, we are going to add that over here to pick up the bone meal, but let the moss flow past. So something like this. I just had to move it a little bit away. Ow, come on. There we go. A little bit away so that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Beautiful. Actually, not beautiful. Yeah, no, it'll be fine. So if I replace that with a piece of blue ice, we can make that work just nicely. Okay, put up some barriers around here, make ourselves some slabs, and we can now easily continue this line across that way. Perfect. So this is going to pick up the bone meal and place it down into the crafter here. From there, we add a comparator signal coming out into a block. I have to remember how I did this. One of those up into another block and a repeater on top of that. Yes, that should work just nicely. That will power. Ooh, will it power that? It might, unfortunately. Do I have to move this one further across? Potentially. All right. I think I've worked it out. That like that in comparison mode. And we fill this up to the top. And that should make it so that whenever this hits 9 items, let's just check. What can we use? We have just enough of this. Let's put it in here. Beautiful. So that once that reaches a power of 9, which is a full crafter, it creates a bone block. Fantastic. This leaves just enough room at the back here for me to run 1, 2, I'm going to do 3 just in case. I really don't think that this farm is going to be that fast, but I just want to make sure that we are troubleshooting, or we are fail-safing, I should say, before it gets to that point. So I'm going to make 3 of these composters. Oh, is it high enough? Come on. It might not be. Do I have to lower this down 1 more? I do. Okay, fixed. So with that down at this level now, we can add these 3 composters on top of here, and there is just enough room for those to have hoppers on top of them, some glass to block off some water flow, and just to be sure it gets across that last little bit, we're going to put some blue ice. Yeah, that seems pretty neat. This is completely not necessary, but I'm just going to add that in there so that it looks nice. So what that means is that when we finally bring the leftover or the overflow of moss through there, it's going to hit these hoppers and compost down into bone meal, also being fed through this bone meal line directly into the crafter. Perfect. So just to confirm once again, we're going to bypass the sorting here because it doesn't have enough. And if I just put this in here, we should have any second now a bone pop out. Fantastic. Wonderful. Let's continue. So if this filter is now going to be picking up the bone meal that comes through, that means that all of the moss that flows past is going to go over the top of this and continue on its way. So we're going to take that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think actually it might be a good spot. Let's think. We can actually run it. We can actually run it directly underneath there. That will actually look really cool. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Add a piece of blue ice. Continue the line on. And that's actually going to get us onto the side that we need to match up with everything over there. Amazing. We'll just remove this temporarily so that we can craft this up and it'll be on its way. Fantastic. So continue that line along here. Add the little bit over the top of that. Swoop. And this should flow along there and flow along there. That is essentially this crafting section sorted. What we're going to do is take the output of this, launch it up another item elevator like that one, and then back down on top into this line so that both of those lines continue along their merry way and into the main system. Let's see if we can hook that up over there and get this all flowing. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. If I just do this. Yeah. Okay. Wonder if I can face that downwards. Probably. Oh, but you shouldn't be able to do that. Here we go. Now we're talking. Sorters, half the moss blocks for now. Dropper facing downwards. And we're in business. 1 line of water. 2. We'll add a little bit of light over this so that we can see. 3 takes us around the corner, and we just need to continue this out here. I decided to complete the loop before I brought you guys back in. So let's just grab a couple of pieces of water and I can show you what I've managed to do. Water there and one last extension. Oh no. I really want to use the exact same blocks, so hold on. We will just grab ourselves some slabs. Okay. So, let's have a little look at this. I should be able to, if I'm just careful, put myself in here and grab one of these water buckets. And that will move the last of that water over here, which is our overflow of moss. Perfect. I'm just going to chuck one piece of glass in there to make sure it is sealed. And let's have a quick look at what I've done. So we now have this system here that picks up the bone meal from the farm, sorts it out down into this crafter that we have down here, and that automatically crafts the bone meal into bone blocks and sends it on its way. On top of that, the overflow of moss that will potentially happen once my moss storage is full will come back all the way around here and go into these 3 composters, continuing the loop and adding more bone meal to speed up the bone production. Both of these flow through this wall here. I'm just going to block that up. And we're going to go into free cam from here to see where they go. So through the wall of this farm, they are both feeding directly into the same bubble column. That bubble column comes up across here and makes its way over to the existing line of water that we have for our sorting system. This hopper here is what we have for our moss, which feeds directly into the moss storage silo. There are approximately 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I think about 9 or 10 double chests worth in each of these silos. So that's a lot of moss. From there, anything that is left over, specifically the bone blocks that do not get filtered into there, will flow down into our existing line again. Yes, I was opening this up to make it easy. And it will flow across until it reaches there. Our bone block storage. That is going to be a little bit slower than the moss to start off with. In fact, I think the silo would probably fill up before the bone blocks do. As such, when the moss has filled up beyond the silo's capacity, it is going to continue over to the end of the line, which usually goes into my overflow chest. But instead, let's just quickly go over there and fix that up because I left it. But instead of going into my overflow now, the water will carry the remaining moss over into here. And let's see. Let's do a thing. Let's see if we can catch it in action. If I drop this moss down in here, that bypasses this, and we should be able to see it come back into the system over this way. So if we quickly run down here, float across, we should see some moss come out of here any second now. It'll flow down to my little system, be spat out by the dropper, and come on, it's going to have to fill up and then go past the capacity of the dropper. Something doesn't feel right. Oh. For some reason that got stuck there. Weird. Let's try that again. It's getting stuck inside the hopper. Usually that doesn't happen. There we go. Okay. Run down here. We do the thing. We hop in position. It sends the moss through the overflow. And that moss comes back out here somewhere. Any second now. Yes. Amazing. Perfect. That extra moss is going to feed bone meal into here. We should have more than 3 pieces. Not quite. I'll just double check that this isn't blocked up. Okay, it didn't quite make a full piece, but that'll work. It will work. So, in theory, everything should be in position now for me to flick this machine back on, and we should be able to see everything being sorted. Any bone meal that comes through there will get picked up by this, but we should see a bunch of moss flow past just here, comes through that system and all the way through, and we'll start to see moss appearing in my storage silo. Come on. Yes. It's just one piece for now, but once the farm is up and running, yes, come on. More than 2 pieces, surely. Huh. Well, look. Yeah, there we go. I was getting worried for a second. Now we're talking. Okay. Now, there is a possibility that the moss will not be able to keep up, or that the single hopper will not be able to keep up. It's not very likely, because I don't think this farm is that efficient. But if for some reason that single hopper couldn't keep up with the stacks that were sent through, then any additional that was left over would thankfully just continue on its way and be sent over into this to continue making bone blocks. It's kind of like a flawless system. And it's only the very, very last resort. Also, can I patch this up? Let's just do this real quick. It's only at the very, very end, once the entire silo is full and the entire bone storage is full. Oh, that might have actually put a bone in there. Remember 43. So it's only once those two are completely full that we would see the last of it coming into here. That's perfect. In fact, I can hear that clicking, meaning that it is starting to supply some of the bones. Or the moss out here to the bone meal, I think is more the point. I'm really happy with this. I think this is a great little system that has come together really, really nicely. Let's have a look-see. That has got more bone meal than when we left it. And if we come up here, we should be able to see an increase in the amount of moss. Absolutely. And with a bit of luck, in a short amount of time, we will see an increase in this bone block number. Fingers crossed. I'm going to restock my rockets, put away a couple of these pieces of excess. May as well check on my farms while I'm doing it. This seems to be running okay. I do believe that this has started to fill up again. It got completely empty when I was out of range doing some stuff, but now it seems to be back on the mend. And if you want an example of how this works when I'm working on other projects than the mountain, if we look in this chest, it's doing pretty good. But on top of that, every single one of these 64 smelters is full with 64 dried kelp blocks. Amazing. So I have so much fuel that I'm probably going to have to start dealing with that and storing some away or making some more of this. But it's nice to know that that works while we're working on other projects. Okay, still 43. It's going to be slow for starters. And I knew that. The main purpose of this is that it will run constantly. So we're not actually getting enough to go through here yet. Anything that will have come from here, wow. Okay, that just means that this has not produced enough bone meal out of this overflow here just yet. We will hear it happen here, so that is doing the thing. In a very short amount of time, we'll get a couple of pieces. But it looks like it's only going to become a bone farm. Oh, there was another piece. It's only going to become a bone block farm once it is filled with moss. So, one last test before we leave this for the episode is to leave it running and just fly what I'm sure is out of render distance, or out of simulation distance, I should say. I'm going to come up here as though I was working on this mountain. That's a long way away for now. But over here, that is more than 12 chunks away from there. In fact, it's more like 20. Building, building, building. And when we fly back over, it should still be running. Let's see if I can get in here nicely. Aha. Oh, so smooth. And it's still working. So the reason this still works is because it does not go too fast, meaning that if it unloads, it won't muck up the timings, I believe, and turn it into, well, yeah, a cobblestone farm. Now, the other thing that is worth mentioning is that once these pieces of bone meal are completely full, the bone meal production of the farm will speed up significantly. So I think we're going to cheat, and I just want to make sure that it does work okay. We're going to grab this 43. I'm going to turn that into bone meal, pop across here and fill that up completely, and do the same thing over on this side. Well, almost completely. And that means the hoppers are going to fill up on top of those with more, well, more than it can produce in bone meal just now. And all of that excess is going to go across and start making bone meal. Let's see if we can get it to produce a bone or two, and then I'll be happy. So I went ahead and left this running with my game also running while I did a little bit of editing of all of that stuff you just watched. And now it should have reached the point. Also, something that I noticed in the edit is because we are not expanding this farm any further, I do not need those things there. Give me that. But now that we have let it run, that should be full. Both sides are definitely full. And that means that all of the excess is now coming over here and being bone mealed. If we check these, it's not completely full on that one. Surprisingly not on this one yet either, but I'm hoping that it will be. And let's go see what we have. So I don't exactly know how long I was editing for, but we have got a decent amount in there. And because this is left to run constantly, we should, yeah, it's begun. And I'm going to leave this running permanently, or at least until that is full. I think this is set up now so that I can run this no matter where I am, and it's just going to continue to produce at a nice, decent pace, giving us all of the moss that we need for all of our decoration and combining with blocks, as well as over time, making plenty of bone. So I do think this is going to become a bone meal farm after it has filled up the moss, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with that. So with a completed project done and dusted, I think I'm going to leave the episode here, and I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. I can probably pick that up. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for your continued support. You folks are amazing. I appreciate it so much. And to everyone who's been watching, I hope you like my farm. I hope you like my little machine. As I said, the main design for the moss farm is by Ray's, but the rest of all of this is done by me completely, and I'm really proud of it. So with all that being said, until the next episode, I hope you all take care of yourselves, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye, everyone.